The clock that ticked backwards. When the old brass clock arrived on Amelia's doorstep, there was no note, just a faint smell of cold metal and dust. She placed it on her mantle, wound it once, and listened. Tick, tick, tick. But the sound wasn't right. It wasn't steady. It wasn't forward. It was ticking backwards. That night, Amelia woke to the sound of footsteps in her hallway. Slow, dragging, deliberate. She checked the clock. The hands had reversed another hour. As they moved, the air grew colder, and the shadows in the corners stretched long and thin, as if reaching for her. The next night, the clock rewound again. This time, Amelia heard whispering, her own voice, but younger, frightened, repeating a phrase she didn't remember ever saying. Don't let it find you. On the third night, the clock struck midnight, backwards. The house went silent. The shadows pooled together, forming a tall, thin silhouette with no face, only a hollow where a face should be. Amelia tried to run, but every step she took felt heavier, slower, as if time itself was pulling her back. The figure raised a hand, and the clock's ticking stopped. The next morning, the mantle was empty, the clock was gone, but in a different house, on a different doorstep, a brass clock appeared, still ticking backwards. The door that wasn't there yesterday. Evan lived in a perfectly ordinary flat. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, nothing strange. Until one morning, while brushing his teeth, he noticed something odd in the hallway. A door that had never existed before. It was narrow, painted the same colour as the wall, almost easy to miss. Evan touched the handle. It was warm, as if someone had just used it. He opened it a crack. Darkness. Not the normal kind. This darkness felt thick, like it had weight. That night, Evan heard tapping from behind the door. Soft at first, then impatient. He pressed his ear to it. Tap, tap, tap. Then a whisper. Let me see you. He shoved a chair onto the handle and tried to sleep. But at 3:12 a.m., the tapping stopped, the whispering stopped. The chair scraped across the floor on its own. The door creaked open. Evan froze. Something stepped out. He couldn't see it, but he felt it. Air bent around it like heat over a flame. It moved down the hall, slow and curious, brushing the walls as if learning the shape of the world. The next morning, the door was gone again. The wall was smooth. The footprints, long, thin, and facing his bedroom, remained. The phone that only rang at 3:17. Mara's landline was old, the kind with a coiled cord and a heavy receiver. She kept it unplugged because she never used it. But one night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., it rang. Not a normal ring. This one was sharp, metallic, almost angry. Mara Mara stared at the unplugged cord. The phone rang again. Against every instinct, she answered. Static. Then a voice, her own, whispered, "Don't go near the window." She dropped the receiver. Her heart hammered. Slowly, she turned toward the window. A silhouette stood outside, not moving, not breathing, just watching. The next night at 3:17, the phone rang again. Her voice whispered, "It's closer." Mara shut the curtains, locked the doors, turned on every light. But the third night, the phone rang louder than ever. Her voice said, "It's inside." The lights flickered. The air grew cold. Mara backed into a corner as the silhouette stepped into the room, its shape wrong, its limbs too long, its head tilted as if studying her. The phone fell silent. In the morning, the phone was smashed on the floor. The window was open. Mara was gone. But at 3:17 the next night, in an empty flat, the phone rang again. The fog that followed you home. It started as a thin mist on the walk back from the shop. Nothing unusual for a chilly evening. But as Noah walked, the fog thickened, swirling around his ankles like curious fingers. He walked faster. Fog followed. By the time he reached his street, the fog was so dense he could barely see his own hands. Streetlights glowed like dying embers. The world felt muffled, distant. Then he heard footsteps behind him, slow, heavy, matching his pace. "No one's there," he whispered to himself, but the fog shifted, forming vague shapes, too tall, too thin, moving with a strange jerking rhythm. He ran. The footsteps ran. He stopped. The footsteps stopped. When he reached his front door, the fog pressed against him like a living thing. He slammed the door shut, locked it, and peered through the peephole. Nothing but white. That night the fog seeped under the door. Noah woke to find it pooling around his bed, rising slowly, swallowing the room. In the fog he saw faces, blank, pale, drifting closer. He tried to scream, but the fog filled his mouth, cold and suffocating. The next morning, the fog was gone. The house was silent. Noah's bed was empty. But outside, a new patch of fog lingered, waiting for someone else to follow.